Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 103rd episode of Dragon Quest Slime Time, a Dragon's Den podcast. This is one of your hosts, Platty M3.
And this is Pendy.
All right, welcome to our first impressions podcast about Dragon Quest III HD 2D tonight. You're going to hear a bunch of Slime Timers talking about...
Platty.
Oh, yeah. We already introduced yourself. Hold on a second there, Pendy.
No, but...
Oh, as I was saying, we've not shared a single second of our DQ3 thoughts yet, so...
But Platty, we did.
We did what now?
We already did a First Thoughts episode.
We did?
Well, not we, but other we did, like a month and a half ago.
Huh, interesting. I mean, I don't remember being there.
Well, because you weren't.
Well, that's odd. Let me... Pulling up the date and what the name... I mean, the Bucks weren't even playing that week. What would I have been doing that Sunday?
You said you weren't feeling good about some sporting event. We just figured the Bucks on a 4-game skid, and you were just too bucking pissed to be on.
I mean, that would jive, but, I mean, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Okay, that was a bye week for the Bucks, but the local women's soccer team was in the playoffs that week, and I wasn't feeling good. I kind of was getting sick right before Thanksgiving there. But we had already bought the tickets. We were going with friends. They were like, hey, you bought the tickets, we'll buy the beer. And then there was Wawa.
Oh, Wawa. That's like Baby Buc-ee's. Good stuff. Like the luck of the Irish.
Well, see, normally their holiday sandwich is an amazing eat, a very good call, but maybe not when you're already nauseous and have been screaming your head off and drinking beer for the previous 2 hours.
Understandable. Feeling nauseous and screaming my head off is a regular state of being as a Giants fan. Thank goodness for Notre Dame. So did we all play like a champion today and during our Dragon Quest III run? Let's find out. We have a multitude of returning guests for this Dragon Quest III HD 2D Spoilercast. We're going to get everyone's final thoughts on the games and spoil the heck out of everything from the opening personality quiz to every post-game boss. You have been warned.
That's right. And joining us tonight in doing so, we've got what, was scheduled to be a slew of Slime Timers, but due to some scheduling conflicts, maybe some weather stuff, I don't know. But maybe now more, we could call it a smattering. But welcome back, Jen and Twinkie.
Wow. I won't let you guys down, especially when there's a gobbler on the line. Got to get that Wawa gobbler sandwich. Thanks for having me.
So good.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show again.
Yeah, no problem. We happy to have you both here tonight, and we got stuff to spoil the heck out of, so we'll go from the beginning to the end and everything in between and kind of take out the parts for the people that couldn't make it, and we'll be all good with that.
So we'll get right into the questions, and first we'll start out with what kind of classes did you start with, and what did you eventually change them to? Sometimes, maybe multiple times. And Platty, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to have to say this a couple times tonight, but I played this game for review, so I was like rushing to play it in like 8 to 10 days to get that review out before the game actually released. I think I met the day by minus 1 day, so woo me. But I didn't get to do like probably as thorough as a playthrough as I might have normally done had I just been like, okay, I've got the whole month to do this. So I didn't change more than once, but I started with a warrior, a monster wrangler, and a cleric, and actually like really liking that setup. When it came time to change, I made my warrior into a monster wrangler because I wanted a monster wrangler again. I made my monster wrangler a cleric, which was awesome because I had some great healing and then awesome stuff. Oh, actually, I didn't make him into a cleric. I'm sorry, that was a sage.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about that because
why did I make a sage, duh? No, the monster wrangler became a sage. That person was like OP. That was awesome because I waited till I got most of the good monster wrangler skills, and then I had my cleric, and I turned the cleric into a martial artist just because I thought like that'd be kind of good. And honestly, that it was underpowered for this one. I should have changed it again, and every time I thought of it, I was like, I got to keep pumping forward, and I should have done it. It doesn't take long to get them back to usefulness with the stat boosts, but maybe I just don't know how to use martial artists very well.
I did hear that complaint from some other people that felt that the martial artist kind of got nerfed in this version of the game, and I think people that especially used it in the beginning of the game seem to have more problems than others. I think the only reason why I did not was because I had a soldier first and then turned it into a martial artist, and maybe the buff from being a soldier helped me out with that, but I don't know. But,
yeah, I mean, going from cleric to martial artist, I didn't have, other than being able to do a couple of healing skills first thing in a battle, it didn't really benefit me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Going from like a weaker fighting class to that, maybe that was what did you in.
Mm-hmm.
But Jen, what about you? What was your journey through all the different jobs?
Sure. So I actually put my first line classes up for a vote on my Insta page. So I ended up with a monster wrangler, a priest, and a wizard. And I saw that one of the trophies was learning all of the abilities. So that was why I decided to just take them through everything. So my monster wrangler went thief, gadabout, sage, warrior, and martial artist. My priest went straight to sage. Then I made her a martial artist, and she was stuck there for a while to get that last ability because that takes forever to get. Then monster wrangler, then sage, and my wizard went merchant for a hot minute just to get through to level 30, whatever. Monster wrangler, thief, and ended at sage because I had the 2 duplicates, so I wanted 2 sages at the end game. I would say I agree that martial artist is not what it was cracked up to be in other games. And you don't have Princess Alina level power. Your martial artist does help with the speed, but I think thief helped more. So I was much happier with my thieves than I was with my martial artist for speed boost.
And for the I was going to ask about the duplicates. Where do you get the second duplicate? I think I only have the one.
So the second duplicate is in the final dungeon after you have to win the dungeon you wish for. And it's in, I think, the trial on the right hand side, the northeastern trial is
okay.
It's in that one.
I'll have to double check my inventory because maybe I forgot I got one. Though I only have the one magic user, basically that really helps out with that. And now I remember I did get the second duplicate, and then I was like, ooh, I'll use that on my hero, and then I can do Kazap twice in a row, and then the hero can't equip it. And I was like,
nope.
Oh, that was very
it was kind of brutal. I was a little frustrated about needing to go back to having 2 sages, but I named all the characters after family, and my daughter really wanted to be a sage again, so I gave in.
Nice.
That's awesome. Twinkie, what about you? How's your job journey in the game been?
I played it super safe. I started with my first classes were Monster Wrangler, Mage, and Priest. I kind of wanted to, since I was planning on going into this game as blind as possible, for the most part, I kind of wanted to play it safe. My Monster Wrangler, I loved the class so much that I didn't want to get rid of it. So I kept him throughout the entire journey all the way up to Zoma. I ended up making my Priest into a Sage after you get the first book. And then after you get the second one, I made my Mage into the Sage. So now my party is a Monster Wrangler, Sage, and a Sage.
That's normally what I do in 3, is have 2 sages, 1 former mage, 1 former priest, and then like a warrior or something. Yeah. Normally I don't do a ton of different classes.
They incentivized that this time, didn't they?
Oh yeah, especially for the post game. Oh my god. And we'll get to that. For my journey, when it came to doing my classes, I started with a warrior, a thief, and a monster wrangler. And having the thief and the monster wrangler was really good because they have all those abilities to find items, find monsters. You don't have to sneak up on monsters, so on and so forth. And as we will go into later and have said a little bit already, the monster wrangler is one of the best classes in this game. And then with my warrior, like I said before, I turned that into a martial artist. So I had a beefy martial artist, and I had fun with that. Thief went into a sage, so I had a very quick sage. So that was fun. And then just like with Twinkie, I kept my monster wrangler the same and didn't change that person at all until post game. Like the entirety of the regular game, I just kept them as a monster wrangler because they were so good. But then in the post game, my martial artist went to monster warrior, then to warrior. Sage went to gadabout, so I could get like all the gadabout good stuff, like channel anger, which doubles your spell power for multiple turns. Then went back to sage. Then Monster Wrangler because of post-game madness and things that you needed. Then back to Sage again. And then my Monster Wrangler, who stayed the same through the main game, went to Martial Artist so I could get that critical acclaim where you can do the guaranteed the guaranteed hit or guaranteed critical hit, which so for slime hunting. And then went back to hunting. Yes. and then went back to Monster Wrangler after that, just after I got the critical acclaim. So that was what mine was like.
So your thief, you turned into a sage 3 different times?
Yes, and just because of there was so much post game, because you've got the Shenlong part, and then you got the trials part. Like normally in any other version of the game, I would never have thought of doing that, but because of wanting to have the gadabout skills, I was like, oh, well, I want to do this. And then I went back to Sage, and then I ran into what I'm going to talk about later, where like there's certain areas where you have to have certain weapons, and that's what screwed me over. And I was like, oh, and then I ended up being Monster Wrangler for a hot second just for that section, and then went back to Sage for a third time. But I'll go into detail about that later. But yeah,
that is why I landed with 2 Sages as well, because of one of those, good sir.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy. All right, so that's what we did with all our classes. So the new Monster Arena, instead of betting on that, thank you Europe for getting rid of that and turning it into something that we could actually play. How far did you go in the Monster Arena? What'd you do, Pendy?
So for me, as they do in the movie, This Is Spinal Tap, I took it to 11.
Nice.
I really loved this new addition to the game. The original Monster Arena was pretty boring, in my opinion, kind of almost entirely useless. So this was actually fun, and I loved exploring around for the new monsters and challenging the arenas. Because I was good at finding most monsters, I never had any big issues completing any of the arena challenges. Usually when I got to a new one, I could beat the lower level challenge, no problem, and I might have to get more monsters to get to the highest level arena after that. I was able to beat the last two, 9 and 10, pretty early on as well. I think I had to repeat 9 maybe once after a loss, and that was about it. And towards the end, I had a Metal Slime as my lead, a Green Dragon for attack, and then a Cure Slime as my anchor who could heal and even Kazing. So that team even got me through the special arena that you could wish for from Shenlong. I loved how the final boss you would face was often someone notable from the game. So there were people like the Queen of Ibis, Monty, and even Patty, who all had monster teams as your final challenge in certain areas. Now, if you remember the TNT boards from the GBC version of the game, there was a Shenlong wish for an additional TNT board that appeared in Japan, just like the new Monster Arena one did. In both instances, the original Queen of Japan, Pimiko, appeared along with this new board or arena. It's a fun Easter egg to find. What's interesting is that there are some really good monsters to find in the post-game, especially in the Trials area after Shenlong. You'll find monsters like Shenlong himself and a Bear monster. Just to see how much of a difference it made, I did a challenge run of 11 with Shenlong, the Bear monster, and a Great Keeper, even though I didn't need to and I'd already beaten it. But holy crap, not even a contest. Yeah, it's like Shenlong hits 2 to 3 times a round. My other monsters barely even went, if at all, during most rounds. The sad part about the Arena Monster Challenge, you'll get a ridiculous amount of gold from beating it, especially that last one.
Yeah.
I mean, that itself isn't sad, but unfortunately, I was not good about using the bank, and I did not realize there was a gold cap. I wasn't paying attention to that. I lost a ton of gold on Arena 11 because of it. If you don't have enough space for the gold when you win, you just lose any of the gold that you don't have room for. It's just gone. It sucks.
That bites. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But thankfully, even with that, I still had enough money that I used for buying all those elfin elixirs in the post, because you have to buy like 25 of them, and they're like 40,000 a pop in one of the challenges. So thankfully, I was still good to go for that, and to buy others later on because I just needed them, just to be safe for some fights. But to be honest, I'm glad they did this instead of monster medals or TNT boards. It was a fun, newish mechanic that made this game even more fun to play. So, I mean, that was my Monster Arena experience, my ups and downs.
Twinkie, how'd you do?
I actually did pretty well for the most part. Once I got to the second half of the game, I got up to rank 8. I think you can get up to rank 9 until post game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with rank 9, and I'm going to be honest with you, I got frustrated with it, and instead of improving at it, I just blamed RNG and moved on to Zoma. So I said after I get Zoma done, I'll go back to it. So
That's great. Jen, how far did you go?
Took it all the way, my friends.
Yeah.
So I pretty much followed a very similar path to Pendy in terms of get to the arena, beat the first level, struggle a little with the second level, get more monsters, beat the next one. I really about 3/4 of the way through the beginning portion of the game before you go down and go to the underworld, I started looking specifically to find the monsters because I didn't realize for a good portion of the game that there were secret areas in the ocean too. So I missed out on a lot of
so
those
many.
monsters, not knowing that like all those rocks in the ocean, like because I didn't even see that many of them until I was flying on the Godbird, which we'll get into later. And so I went back and I found all the monsters. And at that point, aside from dominating the rest of arenas, I also started to really not struggle at all with any of the bosses because my monster anglers were hitting for so much damage with the amount of monsters I recruited. So when I used the monster pylon, it was super powerful.
Agreed. Yeah.
So obvious strategy for beating Shenlong too. So I mean, I'm sure that's going to come up later, but having those monsters not only made the arenas more interesting, but also just made the game a breeze. So probably at some point I'll do a challenge where I don't collect the monsters or something. But for now, like beating all the arenas got a lot easier at that point. And then to take 10 and 11, I did it without Shenlong, but I did it with the Barry monster and the Keeper, and I can't remember the other monster. I took a screenshot and posted it on Questers for someone who was struggling, but that team brought me through quite a lot. Now I want to go back and use the Shenlong just to see how much he owns that.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
But I did really enjoy the liquid metal slime. He was a tank for me for quite some time too. He was a really good monster to have, and the metal slime as well. I think I won with both of them and some random other one that died immediately, and they took it home for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pendy, and Jen, you just mentioned it too. I know the green dragon and the metal slime, and I don't know if it was exactly the cure slime. I had somebody that could heal, and that's what took me through 8 and 9 finally. So I was playing it before release, so I got no guides, nothing to do. But Austin over at DQFM, we were messaging each other back and forth all the time, just texting like, what level have you got to? What level you got to? And I think it was 8 that I hit a wall, and I'm like, I cannot beat 8. And then I think that's when I found the green dragon, and I was like, here we go. And I'm texting him, I'm like, I did it. And I think it was right then, because I don't think I'd struggled on any of the other ones. It was right then that I realized that there was a pool of battles that you might fight, and it's not the same battles every time. And it was right at 8 when I was like, okay, I just dropped down to the underworld, and I think I took it on like right away, and I was like, nope, not with the people I got. Because I did the same thing as you said, Jen. I hadn't really sailed around and just scooped up all that other stuff. I was going. And then I think Austin said something to me, and we got stuck. Oh, what were we looking for? It was the sword of, not the, what's that sword that you get upgraded?
Where you get to turn it basically into Erdrick's sword. I think. But you have to go back to Japan.
Isn't it the Sword of Kings?
Yeah, Sword of Kings.
Yeah, yep. Austin and I got totally stuck on that because the guy outside says there's a house in the woods, and go get the hammer, and the hammer's in the house in the woods and whatever. So both Austin and I spent like 2 days traveling all over the world, opening every little spot, looking for a house in the woods. And then Austin texts me, it's right there. He's like, literally, dude, it's the house right behind the guy that talked. We're like, oh my God. And it's shining. You walk in and it's glowing right there. So but searching for that is what got me a bunch of more monsters. And all that led to me finishing the Monster Arena 8 and 9. But I did not wish. I didn't get through enough wishes to wish for more. And I didn't do a ton of the post game. We'll talk about that. But that it was that struggle, though, for the stinking hammer that finally paid off in other ways.
Yeah, you mentioned the green dragon. That was a game changer once I got in. And I think 8 was like the toughest one for me as well, because that was the only one where I had to do it multiple times. But and you get a second green dragon at some point, and then with second green dragon, you're like, oh, yeah, here we go. But initially, I just had the one, but he was good enough eventually to get through it. So moving on. So how many monsters and mini medals did you end up with in the game? And Platty, we'll start with you.
I might be the lowest here. I got about 50 to 60 of each. I might have got 70 on the monsters just because I had gone back and did a lot of that. I just kind of got what I came by naturally. I never had a thief. I always forget about that in Dragon Quest III, that I should do that and be able to see stuff and find out what's around. And no, I mean, I search every drawer and every whatever, but I probably missed all those other ones that were sitting around, and went back and looked at the list on was it RPG Fan, I think. RPG Site. They've got the good lists, and so no, I got 50 or 60 of each. Like I said, maybe 70 monsters. Just kind of what I came by naturally and looking myself. I never looked anything up.
That's really formidable, though, I have to say.
Well, like I said, there was nowhere to even look it up.
Exactly, though. That's great.
I always go back and forth on should I review these games, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to burn out on it playing it before release, and there's nowhere for help. Now I know somebody that always reviews the Dragon Quest games too, so we've been able to help each other. But I mean, it's like 2 weeks of going as hard and fast as you can and searching everywhere. And then after that, it's kind of like, ooh, one day I'll probably go back and do the full thing, but I put in my hours in a really short period of time.
Yeah, especially about that thief ability. There are some mini medals that are not in obvious places whatsoever, just kind of sitting out there in the middle of nowhere sometimes. And it's like, I never would have found this had I not used Snoop or something that the thief had, for sure. Twinkie, what about you? What did you end up with for both the monsters and the medals?
I haven't looked at the total count for monsters, but I'm pretty sure I got at least 95% of them up to Zoma. I was spamming that monster wrangler ability nonstop every 5 steps, it seems like. I was determined on grabbing every single one I could find. I didn't have a thief through my playthrough, as mentioned before. So, and I didn't want to use a guide. I'm kind of one of those people that kind of goes as guideless as possible on first playthroughs. So I think up to Zoma, I ended up at 58 medals, I think. And that was just kind of finding them naturally, just, exploring around.
Right where I was, yeah.
Nice. Jen, what about you?
I kind of went hard when I saw that, you needed all these different things for the platinum. So I did end up getting all of the monster medal, all the mini medals, all of the monsters. I was stuck on 109 mini medals for an embarrassingly long amount of time. And it turned out that I just didn't I had to go through the list because I misinterpreted one of the secret spots. It was like below Théden instead of above Théden. And so that was the one I was missing. That was number 110. And the Bard and, the Cloud's Gate Citadel was just taunting me about that. So I was very happy to get that one and get the final gift from the mini medal guy and get that trophy. But the monsters were a little bit easier for me, except for when I first was missing them. Once I actually started finding them, it was a lot easier. But I always had a monster wrangler in my team, so it wasn't very daunting. I didn't have to go back and get them or anything. I imagine it would have been a lot harder if I had decided, or if I had started without one. I think I would have needed to get one real fast.
Was there some kind of issue that you had going back to find them with like a naming convention thing with a guide or whatever?
Yeah. So the way that they do the names is kind of annoying because the first monster you get is always named the same thing no matter where you find it. So there's like 5 slimes and the first one's always going to be named whatever, no matter which one you find, no matter what order it is. So if you're looking at the guide and you're looking at the guide looking for the names, that doesn't really help because you could have missed the very first guy who was named that, but you got the second guy and he's named the first guy's name. So it was pretty infuriating for me. And it's something that I've had to like guide people on in the Dragon Questers group where they'll be like, I can't find this monster, Fred. He's nowhere. And I'm like, have you looked for the other one? Because it might not be Fred you're looking for, And I hope that if they do another one of these for 1 and 2, that they rethink that because I just don't think it's that hard to have whatever names show up as possible. As long as they pick names that are not like obnoxiously long or something. So it just seems silly to me. So that is definitely, and that was something that I was kind of thinking of as a detraction of the game, was like, it was really confusing if you missed a monster to go back and find them. But I mean, once I got through all that and I understood that, it was pretty smooth sailing at that point.
Nice. I ended up with 119 monsters and 108 mini medals, 2 short on each. I didn't use a guide. Just was having a thief and a monster wrangler early on and made sure to explore as much as I could. I think if I ever want to get the Grand Dragon below 10 turns in the trial, the super boss, I'd probably want to use a guide and get the rest. The monster's more for making Pylon a bit stronger, and the medals for getting the Extoga. I read up on it. Yeah, I read up on it, and it has a good defense against the status, change moves, and the attacks that the Grand Dragon does. And I also noticed that the Extoga is new to this version of 3. It was previously only seen in 9 and 11. The highest reward, which was only 100 medals for the mobile Switch versions, was a Gringham Whip, and in the GBZ version, it was the TNT Free Pass, which, if I remember right, gave you unlimited passes to the TNT boards.
Good stuff. All right, so that was our mini medals and monsters. But what about the rest of the game? What was everybody's journey like from completing the main game, finally defeating Zoma? Where did you have problems, if you had any, and what level difficulty did you choose? What were you doing with that, Pendy?
So I started out in Dragon Quest mode, and since I pre-ordered the game, I had also been using the elevating shoes at first. It seemed way too easy at first, the game itself, so I changed it to Draconian. And by the time I got to the pyramid, I had stopped using the elevating shoes a long time before that. I realized I didn't want to have that cheat of just getting all this experience all the time. And after wandering around the Ibis area and completing the pyramid, I realized that there was a sizable difficulty spike, so I went back down to Dragon Quest, and I stayed that way the rest of the game, because my plan is to do a second run with Draconian. I also didn't go back to using the elevating shoes until the post-game. After I hit post-game, I was like, screw it, yeah, I'm using all these elevating shoes, because you get like lots of them at that point. And speaking of the pyramid, that new boss in there, along with all the other new bosses, were fantastic. It was a great addition to the game. For some of them, you really had to use your head and think about a strategy instead of just pounding your way through, which I thought was fun. And by the time I got to Zoma, I know I was over-leveled. My hero was 53, and the rest were around the same level to a certain extent. And I didn't even grind at all, ever. I think a combination of using the elevating shoes early on for a bit and doing copious amounts of exploring for the shiny spots and hidden areas just naturally got my levels up pretty high. I even tried to defeat Zoma without the Spear of Light, and I was able to do it.
Hey.
Oh, wow.
There was a problem. There was a problem with that, though. You see, I had done this really late at night. I beat Zoma, and I got about halfway through what I call the congratulations tour of the continent, going back and talking to everyone in the towns. And I got too sleepy and I went to bed. What I didn't realize is that in this particular instance, the game does not autosave anywhere. It's usually really good about auto-saving so many spots, anytime you go in and out of a town or a cave or whatever. But once you beat Zoma, you need to finish the ending to get to that final save, because it doesn't auto-save anywhere else in between there. So my beating Zoma got completely erased. So what did I do? Of course, I used the Spear of Light, and it was a cakewalk the second time around. I didn't want to go through that again. So super easy to beat him. The congratulations tour is worth it, though. Some of the dialogue is, the typical, yay, you saved the world kind of stuff. But there are some gems. Like, you notice even one of the horses is happy that you saved the world when you talk to it. That's funny. Or one of the, in that stable area, there's like a few horses.
I took a screenshot of that. Yeah,
that was a highlight. That was so fun to see that. Or there's one of the weapons merchants that says, weapons are half off. Oh, you're not interested in buying them anymore? Realizing that a shop is not going to be the moneymaker that it used to be. And, the credits were great, too. There is the reveal at the end where you see that one of the priests in the Dragon Queen's castle was really Hargon, who it seems will influence the hatching of her egg that will go on to be the Dragon Lord. So that was cool. I also loved seeing all the little scenes they portrayed during the ending credits, like seeing the Golem officially completed, Galen reuniting with his parents, Robin Hood getting up to more shenanigans, and the big reveal of seeing 2 characters from the Mark of Erdrick manga show up. I'm really looking forward to reading that in English when it debuts in September. Now, this isn't new to 3, but you do get some added dialogue for beating the game with only the hero, or beating it without the hero. I'm glad the official Dragon Quest social media accounts hinted at this recently, or else I would not have thought to try it out at all. I even looked up that you get a bastard sword for beating Baramos solo because the king is so impressed that you did it by yourself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you can only ditch the hero at Patty's once you've beaten the game once. You have to beat Zoma, and then you can ditch the person, or you can ditch the hero at Patty's. Though it is fun to try and attempt it before that with the dialogue that you get from Patty. Now, once you get to the ending without the hero, Rubus will speak up and just transport the hero there, where the king is like, "Where's the hero?" So the natural ending can take place. I also appreciated that you can change the hero's hair color once you beat the game too. So I went ahead and did that.
Yes.
And I do plan to play this game as well, as I said before, with the full draconian mode. Go for that difficulty, and to get to check out the Japanese voice acting, because I did it English voice acting for my first playthrough. Overall, I think I party wiped about 4 times total. One of them was to tentaculars that are in the open seas of Alefgard. Mm-hmm. It was my first encounter with them, and I was just like being like, "Hey, what are these guys about?" And didn't really go that hard at them. And one of them did, I think it's Hypno Whip, and confused my hero, and then my hero kazapped everyone. And that's the end of that. Another one.
That's awful.
Yes. Another one was in the cave where you have to be by yourself, and I got surprise attacked by a group of Robin Hood variants. And they all did desperate attacks, and I just got surprised, and it was gone. I was like, okay, I guess that didn't work. So having the option to not go to the church was interesting. Doing that in a Dragon Quest game was so ingrained to me that I did go to the church, and I lost half my gold the first time, 2 times that happened to me. But then once I got to the post game, I was like, okay, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And the last 2 wipes that I had were against Pandora boxes, which I'll talk about later because those guys are nasty. Yeah. And also, before I forget, can we talk about the cave to Necrogond? I had totally forgotten how much of a beast that this cave is. Not quite as bad as like the cave to Renderark or anything like that, but it just went on for what seemed like forever. That was a big cave. And though actually the dungeon that I sweated through the most was a Talontair tunnel in Alefgard. Not being able to use magic was tough for my party, especially having a sage. And I used pretty much all the healing items I had acquired up to that point because I wasn't running away from my encounters as well. I could have just ran away from a lot of stuff, but I was like, no, I'm going to fight everything, and I just barely made it.
Oh, so what was the first one you were just talking about? The cave to where?
Cave to Necrogond. Where you going
that
to Baramos?
Absolutely sucked. Yep.
Oh,
yeah. No.
Goes on.
Austin and I kept texting back and forth about that one too. Like, that sucked. Although
There's
I will say,
one room where it's like a huge maze. I can't tell you the amount of times I had to flee and go back to the healing area because I was just getting my butt kicked in that room.
The one that killed me the most was the one to the post game.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh! And at
the
one
King
point,
Hydras, right?
Yes, and I wasn't paying attention, and somebody died in a battle, and I'm like watching TV, just doing this because I'm just like trying to speed through it to get through the post game, and somebody died, and then I took some steps because I was like halfway through it or more, and someone died, someone else was low HP, I was almost at an MP by this time, and it auto saved. So then on like the next battle, I wipe. So I'm like, well, I'll just load the autosave. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, my sage is dead. Like, I have a little bit of MP for my martial artist that used to be a cleric, but not like enough to heal everybody. And like, I kept running into those damn King Hydras again. So I must have gone through like 10 party wipes in a half an hour until I could finally, because what I could revive, isn't there an item that revives? There's some reason like I needed to get in the battle to use the MP.
Yeah, the Staff of Resurrection.
That's yeah. So I was like, okay, if I can get in the battle, I can use the Staff of Resurrection, because other than that, I don't have any MP. And then if I can resurrect the Sage, I can heal everybody. I can move on. Oh my God, it was a really bad half hour of just the same thing over and over, and it was just like every battle was the same result with those Hydras.
Yeah, they were pretty nasty. Not gonna lie. They wiped me once too. Maybe twice. I think they wiped me twice. And then I just ran from them every time I saw them at that point.
That would have been the smarter move. I needed the staff. I needed to last like a turn.
Yeah, but then everybody else is dead except for the one guy you revived. Yep.
Went round and round and round and round with that. So Twinkie and Jen, what were your difficulty stories? And
I mean, I started the game on Draconian. I haven't done any of the post game stuff yet, so I don't know any about that. But I kind of felt like the game was a little on the easier side.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to the pyramid, like the pyramid is always going to be like it's designed to be difficult, and I had a lot of fun with that. And then after that point in the game, it was kind of easier. I mean, it wasn't easier, but it was still easy, but it was a lot better. I felt like the difficulty curve was a lot better going forward after the starting area because admittedly I was getting pretty bored at the start of it. So by the time I started going through the game, I was enjoying it more. You know, it was just enough pushback for me at least to keep me engaged and kept me going. And I ended up taking it to Zoma, and embarrassingly enough, I didn't beat Zoma yet. So I'm literally at the stairway to him. So
Is he the only one you have left in the run, or do you have any of the?
Yeah, okay. I have to beat him, and then I'm going to do the post game. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of burning myself out one night playing it, and I decided to take a break, and then I picked up another game, and haven't gone back to it yet. So
understandable.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with the Grand Dragon. Like I literally did everything, and I just haven't even tried fighting him yet, but I'm right there. It's just that it was like midnight and I was like, I gotta get to bed, and then I never picked it back up, and I picked up Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, and I made it through Final Fantasy 1, 2, and now I'm on 3, and I'm like, I gotta get back to to Dragon Quest, man. But I kind of burnt myself out on it too. So, and it's like I need that for the platinum, so I need to do it. But I'm with you, Twinkie. It's a bit of a slog at some points when you're doing just those last pieces of cleanup.
Yeah, it is.
So for me, I would say that the new bosses, especially the dude in the pyramid who was like a complete shock, right? Like you get to the pyramid and you expect it to be like what it was in the original, right? Like no big deal. It's hard, but it's the hard you're ready for, right? It's like, okay, I'm not gonna get the claw right now because I'm not in the mood for the mad rush out of there. I'll just do the pyramid. Maybe I'll get the secret treasures up top. Maybe I'll wait. I know they're not that great. And then this boss comes out and just like beats me up. And I was like, I don't remember him from the original. So I Googled his name, and it was like there was nothing on the internet about him yet. And I was like, it's a new boss. They added a new boss. And then obviously in Questers, people were talking about, oh, the new boss. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. So, I beat him finally after, I think he was my first wipe and my first experience with do you want to just continue the fight from the start of the fight again? And I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that, but I did it because the game offered it, and I beat him that second time. And the boss in Thedon, I think they were like dying fires and something else, and they kept calling their friends, and I think they would like confuse you and put you to sleep or paralyze you, something like that.
And trying to thwack you as well, or whack you.
Yeah, I think it was whack, not thwack, because I think it was like one person at a time who kept going down. And like the random number generator gods were very cruel to me in a couple of those. So I wiped like 2 or 3 times, and I was about to just give up and actually like wipe for real. And I was like, let me try one more time. And that time I got him. And I just got real lucky that they didn't call their friends in time. Like I think I was doing monster pile up, and it finally hit the right guys at the right time. But after then, I think I had just kind of started to realize the trick of the game. And for the most part, aside from the boss troll, just kind of because I was under level, everything else kind of fell into place and was easy. And I was doing the whole thing on Draconian. I also, like Twinkie, was like, this game's really easy when I started. I literally said to my husband, I was like, I can't even imagine how easy it is in Dragon Quest mode. Like this is ridiculously easy. And then, obviously I got slapped around a bit, and that was more gratifying. So once I, had enough monsters that the Monster Wrangler was just like doing immense damage, like none of the other bosses that other people were struggling against really were hard. Like I didn't have a problem. I'm blanking on the names, but like Orichi didn't give me a problem either of the fights, or like any of the new boss when you chuck the Mountain Cleaver, that new boss who a lot of people struggled with.
Yeah.
I got him in one shot. Like I really got on a roll for a while in the game. And yeah, I didn't really struggle a lot after that. But I was using the Monster Wrangler's, ability and just like crushing everything in my path. I figured out you don't need to buff, then sap doesn't matter. And so like all these strategies that are like tried and true Dragon Quest strategies of like, okay, sap the bad guy, buff your characters, use, you know, do the twin hits or whatever it's called, all that stuff you didn't have to do with the Monster Wrangler. You literally just had to attack and do more damage than anyone else could. So it kind of made her in that way. And sometimes, so you know, I'm always looking for other strategies. I also really felt like they were like trying to reward you for using this new character they made up. So I used it because I tried to use everything the game offered me. Like even zooming indoors, I tried a couple of times, but it made me feel icky. So I would make sure I was outside when I cast zoom.
You're not the only one either. I thought that was funny that people were like, no, I refuse to do this. I'm going outside and then zoom.
It's like, and zoom being free instead of a couple magic points. I was like, I always had to make sure I had enough magic points to cast it. And now it's just free. Like, so there were little things like that I did take advantage of, but I was kind of like, or like you could zoom to the dungeons. That was new. And I abused that a bit. Like as soon as I get somewhere, I'd go back, I'd rest, then I'd go back to it. So, I mean, I definitely played the game using all those things that they offered, but I think they made it a little easy because of that.
Definitely. I found the game pretty easy too. And again, that was something Austin and I are like, man, we're just auto battling our way through here. And then, yeah, the pyramid comes and I was on the normal Dragon Quest difficulty. Pyramid was quite a thing. And it's funny because him and I did the same thing. We spent so long on normal difficulty in that, in there that neither one of us went and got the golden claw. Like we both went to the basement and kind of walked around. It was like, no, we're done with this. I've spent 2 hours in this pyramid. It's not exactly where it was before. And I didn't see like the one little visual hint there and kind of gave up on that and was just like, oh my God, I've been in this pyramid 2 hours. I'm not spending longer in the basement.
I actually couldn't find it my first trip to the basement either, man. And like, Platty, it was like, wait, am I just dumb?
That's what I was like. I was like, well, you know what? That there wasn't a boss in the pyramid before, so maybe they've done something completely different. It's got to be down here. I must be missing it. I don't have a thief. Maybe that's something. I don't know. I got to move on. Like the last thing I want to do is be fighting a lot more battles here. But no, I played through the DQ difficulty the whole way. I think the part that other than just the, oh my God, too many battles in the pyramid, but the place where I had a hard stop was fighting the Soul of Baramos at the top of the Tower of Rubis. Now, Jen, you talked about like when you die on a boss, it gives you the opportunity to start the battle over right there. That was the first time I saw that, and I was so excited because it's the exact same interface as Dragon Quest X Offline, which I've played like 85 hours this year and absolutely loved.
Cool.
And I was like, oh my God, this is like letter for letter, word for word. This is the exact interface as what happens in Dragon Quest X Offline. But I think I bought him. I just beat my head against him 3 or 4 times. And that was that's when I realized my martial artist just wasn't doing it. And I'm like, I'm so close. I shouldn't reclass. Let me just go out. And I leveled twice and then finished the game all the way through just fine. I did drop it down to Draggy mode just to get through Zenlon for the first time. Because I was in the middle of writing my review. I was like, I want to kind of throw in a little hint here, like what the post game can be like, and I want to hit this, but I don't have time. I don't have time to do another level, get rid of my martial artist, get that second sage, or that was my healer that became the martial artist. I wish I would have had some monster wrangler abilities on that guy too. Yep. But I probably could have bumped it up for the Draconian at certain points because it definitely was a breeze for the most part. But hey, it helped writing the review really quick.
I was going to say, I think that, for what you needed to do, you probably made the right choice of playing it on the normal mode, right? Like that way everybody kind of knows what to expect.
And like Pendy said, I think another playthrough will be the Draconian mode at some point.
And speaking of the post game, so who did the post game and how is your post game experience? And Platty, will go right back to you for that.
Yeah, I think it's just everything I just said. I beat Zenlon once. I wish for Dad to come back just because I wanted to see that. But, oh man, all the random encounters because I wasn't power levering and all the stuff getting up to him. This is where everybody starts attacking twice, taking 2 turns, and the thwack or whack or whatever it was. And then, the King Hydra's just, oh my gosh. I was like, okay, I need to set this aside for a bit. And I had another game to play for a podcast. And I haven't gone back yet, but it'll be that. We'll do more Zenlon another time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like it's really hard for me to do post game generally in Dragon Quest games because usually it's just get good. You know,
And a lot of checklists.
I swear it drives me crazy because like I really want to get Sorrow in Dragon Quest 4 for mobile and beating the chicken dude. I can't remember their names. Fu Young and the other one.
Oh.
I don't remember. I'm blanking now, but Chow Mein maybe.
I think you're right. I believe that's it.
And like they're just ridiculously hard, and I don't want to grind for them and then get him so underleveled compared to everyone else that it's just so I'm like, I don't have it in me. So again, I crash out on chapter 6 every time I play that game, even though I love it. And so when I was playing this one, I kind of felt the same where I was like, oh my goodness, how can I do this or not? The post game, you know, the King Hydras all beat you up on the way. But the first time I beat Shenlong, I beat him in 13 turns the first time.
The first time?
Yes. Wow. And I was shocked. And I actually never touched that again. I did 17 the next time, 15. I think one of the times you needed to get 15, I did it in 16, which was like soul crushing. But I never actually did 13 again. I think the best I did was 14 after that. But that was like the little bits of like, you know, carrot on the string for me to keep going and do all the wishes and keep running through the game was the fact that I was able to do it the first time. So that's why I did so much of the post game so readily. First wish was for the new monster arena. Second wish was for the new dungeon. I think then I wished for the weapon. Then I wished for like the hairstyles. Then I wished for Dad. Then I wished for the hairstyles. Then I wished for the dirty book. And then the dirty book again. Like that was the order. And then, you know, and then I did the whole awful second area of the post game, the post game dungeon. I'm blanking on the name of it, but that one is just horrendously overpowered.
It's like the Temple of the Trials. It's definitely
Temple of Trials.
Temple of Trials. There you go.
Yeah, and that you know, you go and there's one that's like you got to get all the monsters, one that's like you got to keep bringing the items. And it's like all those seem easy, and then you go to like these areas where it's like you need to have a trial where you can only use these 2 weapons. Good luck. And I immediately got smacked. It was like instantaneously dead. And I was like, I am going to wait a little longer for this.
Walk away, take a breath.
Seriously. I was like, oh my God, that was bad. And so eventually I, you know, reclassed a bunch. That's why I have such a long line of different classes that these characters went through. And I did the trial on the left first, which I think was like boomerangs and something else. Yeah. And that one was easier. And then I got to those awful Pandora's boxes because I got smacked by the first Pandora's box I opened too. Like, so I was casting the Snoop spell to see what was in the treasure chest. So I avoided them all. And then they sick like 2 Pandora's boxes on you. And I couldn't figure out how to beat them. Like I could not beat them. And I Googled it just because I was like, what? And somebody said to cast like this Bazoom spell, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm. That's what it used to be called. Now it's Blasto.
Blasto. That's it. Yep.
And I was like, that is the cheapest way to beat a monster I've ever heard in my life. And then I cast it, and you know, I blew them all away. And the animation's hilarious because it's just like they're just blowing away. So it cracked me up. And then like 4 of them show up after you do that, or 3 more show up after you do that. So you have to do it again, and you have to hope you don't get beat before that. So I was able to do that on both sides, but it was one of the most horrendous and cheap kind of battles I've ever had to do.
Oh, and since you mentioned that you didn't get the treasure chest that had the Pandora's boxes in them, there's only like 1 per box, but you can't blasto those. You have to beat those regularly.
Yeah. I was avoiding those like the plague, and I'm like, at some point I probably have to come back and guys up, but not today, Satan. Not happening. So I really did enjoy the post game, like leading up to that, but that was just a little on the obnoxious side. But now I have to go fight the Grand Dragon and probably get my, you know, butt kicked again. But hopefully I'll be able to beat him fast enough that he's satisfied and I can close the book forever.
He's got his he's got his difficulties, but it seems like almost like a breath of fresh air after Pandora's boxes for the most part, especially if you try and beat him without Blasto, like I did for a little bit.
I was trying to. It was awful.
Yeah. Twinkie, you said you haven't beaten Zoma yet, but do you plan to do most of the post game, or what's your opinion?
Yeah, I do plan on it. So
nice. Gonna get Shenlong and go after the Grand Dragon too?
Yep, plan on doing it all.
Perfect. So for my post-game adventure, I basically did all of the post-game. I was lucky that when I got to Shenlong, I was able to beat him in 24 turns, the first time that I went up against him, and I got that first wish. And as I had previously mentioned, I was over-leveled at this point, at least as far as Zoma was concerned. And after that, I did finally have to grind a little bit because Shenlong wants you to beat him in less turns until he caps out at 15. And getting to Shenlong, oh my God, we've talked about it before, but those groups of purple hydras were just no joke. That was the first time in the game where I decided it was just easier to turn away and run from those encounters instead of facing them. I was like, this is not worth it. I'm just going to run. And then that was when my running adventure began. This would happen again in the Temple of Trials when I ran into 4 steely statues or like 4 Articores. You know, those Articores could act twice and full heal, which was annoying. So that was just so much effort that wasn't worth it, and it was just a random battle. So I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna run. Which is weird because I'm the guy that like doesn't not like to run from battles most of the time. But I was like, I'm not dealing with this. You've gotten me to do it. I'm just running. There's no point. I also think running away seems to be easier in this game, which is good.
Yeah.
Especially for post game. It didn't seem like a monster blocking my path would happen that often at all. I think it maybe happened once the whole time I did that. And it's not like I ran away like a whole lot. Just those encounters that I mentioned, those specific encounters I'd run to, and the times that I'd run into like blue slimes and she slimes in Alfgard, because I wasn't going to waste my time fighting those for like 2 experience. They were fun that would pop up as like, I'm just running away. Bye. But getting to Shenlong and fighting him was like you would expect from any of the other Dragon Quest remakes. The real meat for this version, of course, was the Temple of Trials. This could really kick your ass if you weren't paying attention. Each trial was different, as Jen mentioned. Sometimes it was simple as just, did you collect enough monsters? You don't have to collect them all in that one particular instance. I think he wants you to get like, have you gotten like 100 and something? And there's 121 max. Sometimes it was just like a fetch quest to buy items or equipment. The most ridiculous being the one that we mentioned before, where you have to buy 25 elfin elixirs at 40,000 gold each. It's like the gold gives you a lot of the game gives you a lot of gold, and for most of the game it's like, what am I going to spend this on? And finally you get to that point and like, oh, that's where I need the gold.
I literally emptied the bank to do that. That quest.
Oh yes, me too.
Completely empty. No, not a penny to my name.
Nothing. And sometimes it meant going through a dungeon and defeating a boss. And in both cases, it was the series of Pandora boxes that Jen was talking about too. And not only that, like Jen had also mentioned, you have to be equipped with certain weapons in these areas. So like one of the ones was boomerangs and claws. That was the first one on the left that we had mentioned before. The other one on the right was axes and staffs. Like you had to have those. Thankfully, with the axes one, I thought I was going to have to do some more reclassing, but I went back and looked that like certain classes can go back and equip like the iron axe. So I had like some classes that just had the iron. It's the only axe they could equip. I was like, that's fine because all their abilities aren't attack based anyway. So boom, I don't have to do class changes. I just did the iron axe on everybody. And I did the boomerangs and claws ones first. Everyone was good except for my sage. The sage was the only one that couldn't do either of those weapons. But if you don't have one of those items equipped, you have no attack or defense. But I thought it'd be okay. I'd be like, well, I'll just put her in the back. She'll just sit there and heal, do support spells or whatever. No, horrible idea. After she just kept getting one hit killed, and so that's when I temporarily changed her into a monster wrangler just for that area before going back to a sage again. That's why I had many sage class changes. What were you going to say, Jen?
It was going to be an obscene amount of damage that they would take. Like
1,000 something, yeah.
I think, 1200. It
Uh-huh.
was ridiculous. I was like, that is just insult to injury right there. Like, they are just like, no, you're not dead. You're super dead. Like,
Yeah, it's like not even
awful.
close. Like you'd have like 300 HPs, like 1200. Like, oh, okay, you're serious. Go equip that weapon. Figure it out. I was like, okay, fine. Sorry, game. Sorry, I did that. Tried that. But the random counters in there in the trials are just absolutely brutal. Like it's in the name trials. It's a trial for a reason, but it's like getting in a boss fight every fight. I thought I could somehow beat the Pandora boxes at the end without being cheap. Nope, that wasn't happening. So I finally beat them on a second try, and I thought I was good. I ran into what Jen ran into, where I had no idea that even more Pandora boxes were just automatically summoned at that point, like 3 or 4. They just try and overwhelm you. So I was doomed, except I found this a different way. I just happened to see in either the Den Discord or the Dragon Questers admin Facebook chat, I saw someone mention that you could cast Blasto on them. And
You're
of course
welcome.
Yes, that might have been you, actually, now that I think about it. So that was the key to winning those battles, of course. I had my character that had that spell equipped with a meteorite bracelet just to go to town on them with using Blasto. You had to make sure that you were fast because some of the boxes later on would cast bounce on themselves, preventing you from using the spell if you weren't quick enough. I found that out the hard way. So They were just nasty. I know in the second round of Pandora boxes in the other trial, because both trials they have that as bosses, the very last one that I had gotten down to, he tried to do Omni Heal and Kerblunk before I blew it away. They were just capable of doing so much. They were ridiculous. So I get through that. I finally get to the Grand Dragon. The Grand Dragon was the super boss for the trials. At first I thought, oh man. So is this the special dragon from the end of 11 that starts the whole Erdrick title? No, that wasn't right. In 11, that was the Yug Dragon. The Grand Dragon was actually the super boss in the Game Boy Color version of 3 that was at the end of the Ice Cave. I didn't know that.
Huh.
Yeah. So, and I had never done that before because you had to get so many bronze and silver monster medals to get to the Ice Cave, and I just never had the patience to go back and do that. So I'd never seen him before. He was a little tricky to beat, but I did do it. But only in 24 turns at first. And when you don't beat him in enough turns, it is interesting because he mentions another mere mortal, as he puts it, that had come to him in the past before he had taken his great slumber, because doing all the events in the game wakes him up. I didn't have to grind at all to do better. I just changed up my strategy to be more aggressive, and I got him in 18 turns. That's good enough to get you the grand medal, the little precious thing that you get for beating him, and that's all you get. But apparently if you beat him in under 20 turns, you get the medal, which I did. And if you beat him in under 10 turns, then he will go back to sleep, and then that will be it. That's the most you can do in the game. I haven't done that yet. I'm not sure if I want to grind more with this current setup, or maybe just try and do that in my Draconian run and get them under 10 turns at that point.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's kind of back up here from, we've been focusing on the post game, and let's kind of go all over the game. Any parts that you especially liked? I mean, I think we all have a very positive view of this game, but what are some very specific things that you especially liked? Pendy, we'll start with you.
So highlights for me were adding the scenes for Ortega's journey and adding the new exploration that this version of 3 has. The extra scenes for Ortega's journey were fantastic. It was very interesting how they also shuffled a few things around from previous versions, like how you don't see Ortega's fight with the monster at the volcano until later in a flashback, as opposed to seeing it before the game begins. I also loved wishing him back to life and seeing everyone's reaction. So if you go and see Patty after that, she'll have some voiced lines about him, actually quite a lot. I was surprised how much it kept going on and on. I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is like your whole life story having to do with Ortega. Okay, sure. And then if you go to see the hero's mother without the hero, she's very upset. So that's fun to see as well. But apparently, my whole MO for this game was to make the hero's mother upset. I did that from the beginning and made her cry, and then I did that without visiting her, without by myself, my other party
Did you
members.
ever bring the hero's casket to her?
Yes, I did that because I saw.
Out.
It's bad. I saw someone else had done that. I was like, ooh, I gotta do that too. But and then there's the exploration to find all the sparkly spots that they give you, and then the hidden areas. I enjoyed that part of the game immensely, and it was very rewarding. And as I mentioned before, it kept me from grinding in the main game because I was just naturally getting into fights from regular exploration. That's pretty much what I like the most.
All right, Twinkie.
Honestly, almost the same exact points, really. Exploration was a huge plus with this game. I kind of on the previous podcast on first impressions, I mentioned that I felt like the exploration kind of handed you too many good items, but as you kind of went with the game, it just kind of started balancing out. So I wasn't bothered with that, and it was just really nice to see the game in fresh coat of paint and looking at all these areas and just mindlessly exploring. And as Pendy mentioned, I didn't have to grind it all because I was just too busy exploring, spamming that monster find ability in case one was nearby. I even went through the effort on getting a notepad out and started taking notes on areas I couldn't visit yet, but I felt like there was something hidden there. And I made the list of notes, did all that, had a lot of fun. And I ended up earlier last year, I replayed the original Dragon Quest III, or not the original, but the mobile version. And one of the big questions that came into my mind was, how were they going to handle Ortega in the remake? And that was actually, outside of the new class, was kind of like the one thing that was luring me into the game to see if they were going to flesh it out. And as Pendy also mentioned, they did. They did a phenomenal job handling Ortega. The fight at the end with them was phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. Another part that I really, really, really enjoyed is the Monster Wrangler, as a lot of others have. Yeah, it's a bit overpowered, but sometimes being overpowered is fun. So.
Jen, what were your overall really loves?
Yeah, I have to say I fully agree with everything that's been said. It's kind of funny because, like I said, I'm playing the Pixel remasters for Final Fantasy, and I have no incentive or reason to look anywhere on that map other than where I need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Dragon Quest III HD2D is I am all over that map because I'm checking things out, I'm exploring, I'm getting the sparkly spots, I'm going to the secret spots, I'm finding monsters, I'm finding mini medals, I'm getting supplies. It was just absolutely one of the more compelling world maps that I've played in any video game. I like I said before, I learned about the secret spots in the ocean just because oopsie, I didn't have any monsters. So that was cool as well. I really liked how Ortega was given companions. He and how they were meaningful. So there's the dwarf and how he repairs the helmet, which I missed until post game, right? I got the helmet, but I didn't bring it back to the dwarf. I didn't, even though I knew, you could fix it. Well, I knew you could probably fix it, right? They hint that you can fix it. I never actually went back and got the Zenithium or whatever to fix it. So when I went back and I did that, that scene was so good. But also the other character, Simeo, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Mao. He was really cool, and he's the dude who had the mountain cleaver, right? Who died in the prison. And dealing and seeing his son in their hometown later on after you get a little further in the game, just talking to him again was just like such a cool little feature that I really like and really like immersed you into it. All the NPCs in like every town had something good to say about Ortega. So when you revive him, everybody in your town is saying that. Like Penny was saying, Patty goes on and on about like how he taught her how to use a blade, but she used it for cooking and all this stuff, and she just and everybody loved that dude. Like, he is so yeah, bringing him back was super cool. And I know this isn't like a spoiler, but like the graphics were just so delightful. Little things like carrying your little lantern, and then if you use the mod rod, your little slimes carrying a little lantern, like all that stuff was just so nice to see. Super silly thing, but the fact that when you cast Puff, you can actually see what the dragon looks like now.
Yeah, love that.
I loved it. Like it was so good. Like the Octopath graphics were tremendous. And the problem I've always had with Dragon Quest 3 is that I never felt very immersed. It's kind of a problem I had with 9 as well. You've got a character of no names. You got this group of no name characters with you. But they made me like everybody in that game, including my party who had like zero personality. And I think maybe it's the voice acting. I played with Japanese voices. I bet the English voices are amazing too. But I think like even them just yelling out in the fights made them feel more real. So it was such a good immersive game for me. It really sucked me in. It was much. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was in that respect because of the original versions I played. And that was a really pleasant surprise for me.
Well, nice. I'll be honest. After all you guys have said, I have nothing to add to that. Quite honestly, like anything I say would just be repeating all of it. It's the hidden spots, the monster collecting, just all those story beats, the new bosses. It was excellent. So Pendy, we can just go ahead to the next question.
Sure. So we're going to pivot and we're going to go to any parts that you weren't a fan of. And Platty, we'll go to you first for this.
Pretty much everything I wasn't a fan of was battle related. The encounter rate I found just too high, although I think going through all those battles, I was appropriately leveled everywhere for Dragon Quest level difficulty. And then, oh my God, those monsters that went twice. And we've talked a bunch about them. Pendy, you've talked about them, and the Hydras and the stuff in the bonus dungeon, and just everything that went twice really just became quite a drag.
Or three times.
Or yes. No, that started up too. Once I saw that, I was like, I think this may be the end. I need to type out 1,500 words anyway. So, and the battle system UI I thought could have been better. There's Octopath 2. Sorry, Janet, take one of your notes down there. That you see the characters, you see what they're doing, and I love the different perspective on the battle system, pulling out and you see your characters there, and like, yay, that's cool. But then it zooms in, and all the kind of good stuff goes away. You can't tell if your person's poisoned. You can't tell if they're paralyzed until the end of the round. And I know I was talking to Brian about this, and he's like, but you don't need to. And I'm like, but I'm planning the next moves ahead. And if in my head I'm like, woohoo, I can beat this guy in the next round because I'm doing this, and then it pulls back and all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, somebody's paralyzed and 2 people are poisoned. Well, that just throws what I need to do out the window. We could have turned colors. We could have had some little icon next to that to show during the battle, like maybe who was buffed and who was wow, I'm pulling a blank on this with like twin hits and by kill.
I know.
I'm in the 80s and 90s translations here, but all that kind of stuff, like it just wasn't there enough. And I mean, was it minor? Did it really matter in the grand scheme of things? No, but it was like, if you're doing all this, why would you err on the side of less information? And the last 2 mainline games, I haven't replayed a lot of Dragon Quest games in like the past 5 years, but I've played 100 plus hours of Dragon Quest XI, and I can watch my characters fighting. And I just spent like 80-90 hours this year on Dragon Quest X Online, which came out before this game. And I'm watching my little chibi characters all dressed up and fighting with their weapons, and it's got that perspective. And I was like, oh, like you did that there. Like, we didn't have to go so far back to the Dragon Quest 3. We could have given a little bit more information. And I know one of the quibbling things that I've had that like almost nobody else has, I actually really like being able to pick what I'm doing when it's my turn. Dragon Quest XI does that. You're not picking all your stuff at the beginning of the turn. I want to be able to heal. If there's a moment where somebody gets smacked pretty darn hard, I would love my next person to be able to heal. I didn't know that I was going to get that critical hit. And I know that's why we put on AI, because the AI will heal better than that. But, Dragon Quest XI, you could be more reactive. Dragon Quest X Online copied that same format. And like one of my favorite things about Dragon Quest Online, or 10 offline, sorry, not the online, 10 offline, is they had a little trigger button. You could hit the right trigger button at any time when it was one of your character's turn, and it would just do the auto stuff. So you didn't have to have it on full auto all the time. You could just, be picking stuff. But if you got to somebody and you're like, let me let AI decide which one, you could just kind of tap the R button a little bit. I loved that, going one at a time and being able to react. And I think especially when you start with those monsters attacking 2 and 3 times, like, my gosh, it's hard to plan what the heck's going to happen. If you're fighting 3 monsters, they can get anywhere from 6 to 9 attacks. It's rough to be picking what you're going to be doing, and you're possibly, with 4 characters, picking something that's not going to happen for 12 actions. Like, my slowest character, my God, what am I going to have that person do? There's going to be 12 other things that happen in this battle before that. So, again, it's all minor. It's like, that's bringing it up to, like, what modern turn-based Dragon Quest is. And I know that wasn't the goal here. The goal was to make a very lovely recreation of Dragon Quest III, and they did that. So minor quibbles, but I thought the battle could have been a little tweaked.
Well, if you don't like the encounter rates for 3, just wait until 2, because if I remember right, that has like the highest encounter rates of all of the Dragon Quest games.
Oh, shut up. And then I to be honest, I never had a problem with the Cave to Renderrock back in the day. But we'll see what happens. But then again, I played it on the NES, and I had my trusty map right there, the Cave in the Box. So I feel like all these people that didn't grow up with that version didn't have that handy. And, when I was 13, 14 years old, I was sitting with that map through that cave to Roan back then.
Yep.
I never call it Renderrock, and Pendy mentioned it earlier. It's always Roan. It's Live Forever by Kill and Twin Hits.
Hurt and hurt more for life.
Yeah. Yes, do it.
So Twinkie, what about you with the parts that you weren't maybe not so much a fan of?
Ramia. That's pretty much it. Honestly, it was so slow and aggravating. As I mentioned before, I took like all these notes on world exploration, and I was so hyped to do it. But then after realizing how slow she is, it just took the wind out of my sails. It was just a slog. I did not like it one bit. And I'm one of those guys who I try to be 100% perfectionist if I can. So every time I see like a little spot somewhere of an item I missed, I try to go over there and grab it. And I spent like a whole entire evening just doing that. And honestly, I kind of partially blame that for part of my burnout. Was just Ramia.
No, I don't blame you.
Brutally slow.
Yeah.
Brutally slow. I would just like go up and down just for the illusion of speed.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. I did that too. It'd be like, oh, look, I'm going faster. Oh, no, it's just a dive.
Yeah.
It was bad. You're right. I want to put some turbo boosters on that bird, please.
Yeah.
That should be like in the updates. Like they should update it so you can like.
I was going to say that seems like something that shouldn't be too hard to implement. I mean, it's not redoing the battle system or anything.
Right.
Like you could make the boat go a little faster. So why couldn't you make her go faster? Godbird.
True.
I think she could move.
My other
bird, speed up.
My other complaint I had was this is completely minor, but Golden Claws, I'm sorry, but I was so disappointed that the Monster Wrangler could not equip them.
Oh,
that was also the one thing I was not a fan of, because the Monster Wrangler could equip Iron Claws, so it gave me the expectation. Oh man, the Golden Claws. Oh yeah, give me that plus 62 attack. I'm ready for it. And then I get it, and I just couldn't equip it. And yeah,
that is brutal. I didn't know that.
Yeah, only certain claws with that class.
Yeah, it's not a huge deal or anything, but it was a little disheartening too. So
and you were set up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, with my class, I was all about area of effect attacks. So my Monster Wrangler was a whip. And then my hero would use a boomerang. I did have a martial artist, so that's who I used for claws. And then my sage, of course, would do. I thought, could the sage do boomerangs? I think
sage can do a lot of weapons. I have whips, and obviously the Destructible is like the best thing for the
exactly
for anybody.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was especially early on. Well, early on I didn't have a sage. I had like the thief. Oh yeah, because I had the thief, Monster Wrangler, and then the soldier. So my thief and my Monster Wrangler is like whip and boomerang, and then my hero is boomerang, and then like it was my lone soldier who was just doing the single attacks. So I was all about doing those things. So I was okay with that. But yeah, it's weird how like the Monster Wrangler only certain claws they could do. But Jen, what about you? What were the things that annoyed you in the game?
So I 100% agree that the battle system UI wasn't super helpful, especially with how good it was in Octopath and Octopath 2. Like it was telling you everything you needed to know. And so for me, it was that like only half of the things that happened to your character, buffs and debuffs, actually showed up next to your character. I didn't need to know right away what happened. I usually, unless I put it on super fast mode, like I could see what was happening in real time. But sometimes I would forget if somebody had insulate on, right? And there's nothing that indicates insulate is on. You have indications for, sap or buff. You have indications for the attack that we keep calling by kill that's called something else now that I can't remember. But you have some indication.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oomph. So you have indications for oomph. You have indications for like half of them. And then the other half you don't have any indication for. And so that was really annoying. Super silly quibble, but I'm so used to being able to see my level in Dragon Quest games because it's usually like the name, the HP, the MP, the level.
Yeah.
And so not seeing that, like I was going back because Pendy had said, oh, I was such and such a level when I beat the game. I was like, oh, I wonder what level I was at. So I go back to the screenshots I took for my Insta, and I have no idea because all I can see is my hit points. I can't see my level. Such a silly thing, but it's just something I'm used to with Dragon Quest games to be able to see my level in the battle. The normal battle speed text was so slow that I forgot about it until we were talking. I moved on to fast immediately. Like in the first battle, I had to switch it to fast. There was no reason to even have one that slow, in my opinion. It was so painfully slow.
Well, that was also apparently a glitch because in our version that we got over here, normal for some reason has this unnecessary pause.
Really?
Which but you said you played it in Japanese, but someone was saying like in other languages it doesn't do that. I
played it in English, but with Japanese voice, so all the English, stuff.
That was it. It was in if you played your text in a different language, you can go and check this. If you like, for example, you do in Japanese, the normal will actually be normal, but for some reason with the English, it has this glitch where it pauses after every action, and so normal is actually like super slow.
Yeah,
so
it was awful.
It was a localization error, which I don't think they've ever fixed.
I've heard that the French localization was the same way too, with the same glitch.
Yeah.
Oh wow, maybe it was built off the English version, like an overlay. The other thing go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the normal was so incredibly painful. I was like, no, I'm never doing this again. Sometimes I'd actually hit the trigger button and be like, oh, why is it so slow? Oh crap, I accidentally hit the button. Oops.
Yeah. It was bad. And then I would do super fast for grinding, but put it back down to regular when I actually had to pay attention. But I will say that something else I kind of didn't like was that a lot of the stuff they added, all that Ortega stuff that we love, you could miss a lot of it pretty easily. There's no reason to go back to some of those areas and experience that stuff. So you can miss talking to Samayo's son, or you can miss fixing Ortega's helmet. You can miss a couple really funny pieces of dialogue when you revive your dad and he's like talking about how your mom won't shut up, and it's so funny, but you can easily miss it. And I actually missed taking a screenshot I really wanted to take. So if anybody happens to see it and wants to send me the screenshot, because I think it'd be really good for feels, there's this where he says he's so proud of you, and usually you get the they say the same thing over and over again. It's a Dragon Quest game. I literally have not been able to get him to say that again, and it's like, your dad telling you you're proud, he's proud of you. Like that's what my Instagram's made for, man. So it's literally about the feels. That's the biggest feel you can get in the game, and I missed it. And so it's so easy to miss a lot of the added content. And I think that they did an okay job of hinting things to you, but they were still painfully missable. So that's something that I wasn't a big fan of.
Yeah, and that's been the way from the get-go, where there's just some areas in Dragon Quest III that are optional, and it's an open exploration type of game, and they don't force you to go to every little thing. So you have to be good about that, or like you said, you can miss some stuff pretty easily.
Yeah, you don't even have to wake that town up, right? Like you can completely skip that if you want to, can't you?
To do what now?
There's that one town where everyone's asleep.
Oh, right. Yeah, you can totally skip that.
You don't even need to wake them up.
Like it's going to be painful because you kind of need to. Well, actually, no, you don't, because I was thinking of like getting the elfin elixirs that are to sale at the fairy town, but you just have to have the mod rod, and then you're good to go. You can let those people just sleep forever. But I think for me, I'll have to repeat that Ramia is just so painful with how slow she is. I just couldn't stand that. There's basically just two things. One was her and one was something else. The first was actually not being able to zoom to the mini metal well. Yeah. They were
yeah.
They were
Walking
so
through the town.
Oh my god, every time. So they were so good about having every little area have its own little zoom slot. There should have been one for this place too, considering how often you have to go back there. Just traversing through the town every time was not fun.
Not taking that wrong turn and going down the street ahead of that street where you can't get to. Oh,
you think I'd memorize it, but no, I did that too. Because I get lost very easily. That's just my natural ability of not being able to navigate. But and speaking of zoom, it took me forever to figure out that you could zoom outside of a location by holding down the X button with the switch. I happened to see it mentioned in a Reddit post, not a complaint, as the directions are right there on the map. I was just being dumb in that instance.
I missed it too. And I naturally wouldn't do it accidentally a bunch too. Like when I wanted to zoom outside, I'd forget to.
Yeah, because it wasn't something that was in previous versions of the game, so I just didn't pay attention. But again, the second was Ramia, as we've said before. When you walked and you did the boat, there was a fast travel option, and I was good with both of those. But why on Rubus's Green Earth did we not have that option here? Just like we said before, she's so slow. Someone put up a comparison video, and it takes Ramia about twice as long to get around the world as it does in the other versions.
No way.
Yes, it's that bad.
That's brutal.
I remember the worst was getting to the trials area. So you have to use Ramia to get there. Yep. And I hadn't used her in forever because of my time in Alefgard for doing all that stuff. And I was just, when I got back to do the trials, I was just painfully reminded of how slow she is. Just so annoying. The takeoff and the landing animations were beautiful. I didn't mind waiting for those as those, went off. But just waiting for her to fly. No, bad. And I love that she hangs out in the trials too when you get there. That's super cute. But it's just her flying speed is awful. Honestly, for me, it would be a perfect game were it not for these two things, especially the Ramia part.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus amongst people is Ramia was so slow.
It's just it just blows me away that they can't just fix that with a tiny patch.
Right?
I play so many, I'll review and I'll play lots of little indie games for RP Gamer, and I'll join the Discord for the publishing company that does it for a couple months, as I'm playing it and a little bit after. And I follow the updates, and those companies pump out so many updates the first week, month, couple months. And then I look at the big companies and it's there you go, you got it at the end.
There's literally, I don't think there is an update at all I think that it hasn't been updated at all. Dragon Quest 3.
Look at my Switch right now and see if it's still at the 1.0.
Yeah, I don't think for the PlayStation version, I don't think I have an update on it.
And they did remember with Dark Prince, Dragon Quest Monsters, they did a whole bunch of updates.
A bunch.
Yeah.
And they did things that would improve the game, like the finding the eggs and stuff like that. So it's weird that they didn't do it here.
I forgot about that egg thing.
Oh, there is an update. It's downloading right now. I just went and
You're going to get on there and Ramia's going to get turbo boosters on her back.
You know what I think it is? Because we were talking about this in the Dragon's Den Discord. So I was complaining, me and Dwayne were complaining about how you can't skip through the load menus. And then someone was like, yes, you can. And then I loaded up my game and I was like, oh, now I can. I don't think I could do this before. So they made that faster. But of course, they didn't do anything with Ramia. Damn it.
Yeah, wow, that is downloading as I speak. I just hit look. Usually those things kind of auto download. Yeah, successfully downloaded update data. Interesting.
I'm looking for patch notes. I can't find anything on it.
It's probably almost nothing because it's version 1.01. So yeah, that's somebody somewhere had a crash and they fixed that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with our complaints, let's get back to some good stuff. What is the best new addition that you all think was put into the game? Pendy?
So I have 3 total that tied for first for me. The first one for me is the Monster Wrangler class that has such great abilities, especially like Wild Side and Monster Pylon. The post-game bosses would have been an absolute chore without having these abilities. And the sprite designs were fun for the classes, the male and the female, and I really loved exploring the class and seeing everything that they could do. Because you learned things that were naturally, and then as you found more monsters, and you got abilities from that as well. So that was cool. I like how they did that. The monster arena was also a big highlight for me for reasons I've gone into previously, so I won't go over that again. And then, but finally, my third thing is the English voice acting was really, really great. At least one of the voice actors was from Dragon Quest XI, who plays the hero's mom. Baramos and Zoma were just how I envisioned them. The only thing that I thought was weird, that was a couple of characters that didn't get voiced, and then there were some that did. And Genghis pointed this out, too, in the Games of the Year episode that we did on Side Quest. And I agree that it was weird that the Queen of Ibis didn't get voice. I thought that one was kind of weird. But then, for example, there is the guy that tells you to F off at the gates of Adina who gets a voice. So sometimes the choices are kind of odd with that. But other than that, I was really happy with it, especially the characters like Robin Hood, or getting some added atmosphere in Orochi's lair with hearing the Orochi scream occasionally, things like that. Also, it was great for learning the pronunciation of certain names, even though I probably already messed some of them up during this podcast. Example, like Shenlong instead of Zenlong. I never would have guessed that. So, and I'm looking forward to hearing the Japanese voices as well on my second playthrough.
Don't they pronounce Tentagel Castle that way? Because I always call it Gel.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, that kind of threw me off a little bit.
There was a couple of names where I was like, oh, that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. Okay, interesting.
What'd you like, Twinkie?
Monster Wrangler. It's been mentioned 100 times before, but it was a really fun class that was added in. I have no complaints about it. The other addition that it's obvious, but I was kind of taken by surprise by it. It's just a graphical overhaul. It just the details that they added after playing the older versions for so many years was just a treat to go through all these areas and just looking at them in this revisioned graphical style, and I absolutely loved it. I still think my favorite moment of the game was when I went to the pyramid and it was dark out and the hero's just carrying his lantern, and just the atmosphere of it was just captured perfectly. I absolutely loved it to no end. And I'm not really huge of a graphics guy when it comes to this kind of stuff, but it's just the details were just amazing, especially when you would like look in the background of like up on some tower and you can see some areas in the background in the world map and stuff like that. And it was great. I loved it.
Jan, what was good for you?
Oh god, yeah, I have to completely agree. I got to Ibis castle in the dark with my lantern and talked to the cat that has like the demon in it, and it was just such a cool scene. And I remember the scene from the originals where the cat is all like, I am I'm evil, and just it was so cool to see it with the new graphics and just that fresh coat of paint. I really loved the customization of the sprites, so that if you were to have a party of 3 of the same class, you had a little bit of flexibility as to what they look like. Different hair colors, different hairstyles. I wish there were some different clothing options too, maybe some more variation or color there, but considering what it came from to where it is, it was good. Obviously, you can equip the cat suits for some fun, or you can equip the dangerous bikini for some fun, different sprites. But the options for the hair, the options for just the overall look of the sprite was cool and different, and I appreciated that customization. And choosing the voice you wanted for the character, I really think that enhanced the overall just experience of the game. I thought the voice acting, I did the voice acting in Japanese, which was interesting because there were some translation choices that they made that you could kind of tell were off in terms of fairies versus elves and things like that, but it was really good. The voice acting was really solid. It was really immersive, and just fun. Obviously, I think everybody's going to say the Monster Wrangler class. I thought, it's OP, but in the best way. And I thought, the timing for that class coming right after you had the Dark Prince, where he's a monster wrangler, they look kind of similar. Thought it was really nice way to kind of, pull that in, and just very enjoyable class to play as. I do think they always incentivize the new class. When they added Thief, it was a really good class to use for like that attack with his like 6 times damage when things are asleep. And now they've added the Monster Wrangler, and there's a huge incentive to collect monsters to use the Monster Pylon ability or some of the other ones. So totally okay with it being OP, because you can always just not use it if you don't like it. But those were probably my best addition game.
Nice. So while I loved it, it's driving me batty, the customization for the sprites, because I do so many perler bead things, and I really want to do like my party with this, but I customized mine so beautifully. But it's like, even if I like take a screenshot and like zoom in, it's not as good a quality as like the pre-made ones that are out there, and I'm like, I don't want to make the one that I want mine. I want the girl with the pink hair, not that default one. So like literally it's been 2 months and I'm like, I haven't even started one. I made a Monster Wrangler this summer and I got about halfway through it and my kids knocked it over.
Oh.
And these are way bigger because I've got every job class for the SNES version, and they fit on like a smaller perler bead. They're like 28 pixels tall and like 20 wide. They fit on a nice board. And then these are something like 50 or 60 pixels tall and like 40 wide. So, I mean, it's like doing 4 at the time of 1. So I'm never going to make every one for these. That's just too much. But I want to do my party. And I'm like, I look at it and I look at the ones I have like a clear image of. And I'm like, but that's not mine. That's not my guy. That's not my girl. So, but you're right. I love the customization. That was fun to be able to do some purple hair, pink hair or whatever. And then, of course, the Monster Wrangler class. So I won't go any farther than that. Again, you've summarized it all pretty good. So we can head to Pendy, your next question.
So for everyone here, did anything surprise you about the game? And we'll go back to Platty.
So I got to the end of the game and I realized I hadn't played as Ortega. And I was like, what the heck, man? I thought that's what it said when there was going to be more Ortega stories. I'd get to play like a little couple hours of him, like the Dragon Quest 10S or 11S interludes or something like that. I thought there'd be something like that because honestly, when I know I'm going to play a game, I don't read all the media. I might see something scroll by online, but I don't watch YouTube ever. I don't sit and see all the nitty gritty stuff. I'm like, I'm going to play it anyway. So I'd rather be playing a video game than spending 3 more hours learning about Dragon Quest, which I'm going to play anyway. So I just, in my head, I had this whole story going for the past year. Like, oh, we'd have more Ortega story. I get to play as Ortega. So at the end, I was like, wait, what happened? I didn't get to play as him. And then I realized, oh, but I've experienced his story through the flashbacks. And yeah, I did exactly what they said they were going to do. So honestly, yeah, other than a couple new bosses popping up, like my biggest surprise was because I had an expectation of something that was not ever going to be a thing.
Jen, what about you?
So the new bosses, I definitely wasn't expecting them to be adding new bosses, and especially not the kind of bosses they added where it was like strategy heavy. So, I thought that was a great addition. That one definitely surprised me though. I mean, I'm telling you, walking into that pyramid and that guy jumps out at you and you're like, uh-oh, that's new. So that was definitely great. I thought that the big reveal at the end, like my mouth fell open. And it's so like you sit there and you look at the NPC after you find out he's Hargon and he's holding Hargon's staff.
Yeah.
Like it was there the whole time and you didn't see it, right? So good. And I think like just before the game came out, there was somebody in Questers who said something about how they thought that the Dragon Queen's egg was really the Dragon Lord. And I was like, I never thought about it that deeply, but I wonder if, that could be. And then Hargon comes and he's like, he's doing his little monologue at the end. And I should have known it was him because everybody knows in Dragon Quest Builders, he takes forever to get to the damn point. So like he's doing his little monologue. Right? He's like, oh, and I promise, I swear on my name that I'll be evil or whatever he's saying, it's taken forever. And I'm leaning in, and me and my daughter are leaning in. And my daughter loves Dragon Quest Builders too. So, and he's like, and my name, Hargon. And we both lost it. It was such a moment, like number one for me, but number one, like that my daughter got into it because she doesn't play a lot of RPGs. She liked builders and builders too, but she didn't play these games. So doing that with her just made it even better. So that was and just super unexpected that they were going to tie the games together in this way. So and now it's like, oh, this is why they're releasing them in this order, right? Like you finally understood why they did everything the way they did it at that moment.
They actually had a plan.
Yeah. Who knew?
Exactly. Twinkie, anything that surprised you when playing this game?
Honestly, it's the new bosses that caught me off guard. When you first encounter Ripper, I think his name is, in the pyramid, I was so confused by it that I was gaslighting myself thinking that I fought him before in a previous version or something like that. And I'm sitting there going like, wait, I don't remember this, but so I had to look it up online and everything, and it's like, oh, it's a new boss. Neat. So that's kind of like the one big surprise I had, to the point where I was gaslighting myself apparently, but and the one cool thing I really do like about the new bosses is that I told myself after that point, okay, cool, now you can expect new bosses going forward. But they added the new bosses in places that I did not expect at all. And I actually really like that. So how they handled the new bosses, I thought was really good.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, they put them in a lot of different places. And it was nice that they did that because it's an older RPG where they hadn't gotten to the point where, like, hey, this is like the structure where we need to have, like, little mini bosses as you go along. And Dragon Quest III, for the most part, didn't have that except for a couple of places. And it was nice that they thought of, like, well, maybe let's put in, like, 4 or 5 different mini bosses here and kind of spice it up a little bit. And it was very good. I think for me, I was somewhat shocked to see characters from the Mark of Erdrick manga show up in the end credits, as I mentioned before. But then I realized one of the special edition items that you could get in Japan are the red Erdrick shield and sword from the manga that are made into little collectible pins. It was a little bonus that they had with their collector's edition that we did not have. So putting this all together, and it's obvious why they are making a big push for the manga in English now, because it might be, more things that, show up in maybe 1 and 2. I don't know. But, again, I agree that Hargon showing up was shocking as well. Very cool, though. It'll be interesting to see what develops in the 1 and 2 remakes this year based off seeing that little scene. Like, maybe they'll have more of an in-depth story for the Dragon Lord and or Hargon, which would be really great. So I'm hoping that's where it leads to.
Alrighty. Well, with that, I think we've come to the conclusion. What are our final thoughts? What's the last thing you want to say about the game?
For me, I would say this is such a great remake of this game, an A for execution after waiting for it for so many years. I think this title really shows what needs to be done for a quality remake. Something that Dragon Quest, at least in Japan, has been well known for going back to the Super Famicom remakes. So I give it a 9 out of 10 Seeds of Salvation.
Twinkie, final thoughts?
9 out of 10 experience as well. As I said, like, outside of a couple points, the game was just masterclass design throughout. Enjoyed nearly every minute of it. Don't have any major complaints outside of Ramia. But yeah, would I asked this myself during the first impressions, and that is this version going to replace further playthroughs? And I think I solidified my answer on that on no, but maybe this is a hot take, but I feel like remasters and remakes, when they add to the experience but don't necessarily replace the previous versions, I think is the best way to do it. And I feel that way with the remake so far. And they definitely made the painful 5-year wait or however long it was for this to come out well worth it.
Well said. I actually really agree with that. It was worth the wait, and especially the big reveal of, and then in a year you're getting 1 and 2, right? Like that was what solidified this being worth the wait for me. It was like, oh, they were working on a bunch of stuff. I think, I struggle to give rating. I want to say 9.5 out of 10. I really think this game was excellent. It was an absolute delight to play. There were a couple minor hiccups, but I think I've said this before to Pendy, but like as I get older, I'm much less critical of games. I just want to have a good time. I'm not going to hold this stuff against it. So I cannot wait for 1 and 2. I hope they follow in footsteps. I hope they learn minor things. I hope they definitely fix that localization issue with the normal speed, battle speed, and hopefully they'll hear the fans about, traveling being a pain on certain methods, but don't think we'll have to worry about Ramia again, but there's different ways of traveling that I want to make sure move nice and smoothly in the next game. So yeah, I loved this game. I think it was really solid, enjoyable from beginning to end. Give it a 9.5 out of 10.
So when I reviewed it for RP Gamer, I gave it a 4 out of 5. And kind of like what Jen said, as I'm getting older here, I'm actually approaching 50, and I actually have a harder time going back to older games. I'm used to the modern games. I'm used to, even in turn-based, I want more information. I want it to flow faster. And the battle system kind of bumped on me and a little bit, even though it was, perfectly good remake of Dragon Quest III. I was like, oh, like 30 years on, I want a little bit more. I would like it just a little bit better. And then, yeah, like the stuff like the Ramia and speed and everything. I just wanted that to be speeded up. But I mean, in terms of a Dragon Quest remake, honestly, it's a 9 out of 10 for what they could have done. So, thinking about it like globally in terms of all the games I review, 4 out of 5 kind of felt right there. But had we do like quarter systems, I probably would have been like that 4.25 out of 10. So, But encroaching on that score of 9 out of 10 would have been fine, definitely. Alrighty. And that's it, guys. That's all for this episode of Slime Time. Thank you, team, for coming on to nitpick every little second of this game and our experiences with Dragon Quest III HD 2D. As always, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. Sorry. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you, Twinkie.
Thanks for having me as well. It was so great to chat with you guys.
Yeah. Sorry, on the planning sheet, I never type anything in there because then I get Blue Star, who pedantically reads every word I put in there. She will say, insert a goodbye.
Says hello. that kind
say of, yeah. One more thing. Yes. Love her for it, but now I've just learned to leave it blank and like, okay, fine.
So we're a non-profit podcast. We won't class change to a thief and take your hard-earned gold when we can offer you quality content for free. But if you do have some extra gold that's completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, or the return of the hanging wall sack or treasure chest, and you would like to donate to anything to a website that's been supporting Dragon Quest fans for over 25 years, stop by the Dragon's Den by clicking the link in the show notes. There are several ways to support the Den, including the affiliate links that don't cost you anything extra when making other Dragon Quest purchases, including the game we just reviewed.
We even have a Slime Time t-shirt that was designed by our resident artist, Dwayne. See the link in the show notes.
You can direct comments or questions for the podcast on X and Instagram at DQSlimeTime. And as always, you can join in tons of Dragon Quest discussion at the Dragon's Den forums or Discord, the Dragon Questers and Slime Time groups on Facebook, and the brand new Dragon Questers Discord.
Please like, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast.
Dragon Quest Slime Time, sliming off.
Hello everyone, this is Matt, and it's my turn for the post-game, period. Beating the crap out of Zoma was very satisfying. And then after the credits went through and I saw I had a fancy new vocation for my hero, I went to the little castle that showed itself and up to the clouds, where I went through the revamp of old dungeon maps, picked up some items, and ended up in Zenith Castle, what they call now Cloud's Gate Citadel, period. Of course, we all know what happens there. You get to go through the castle and fight the magical dragon wishing thingy. Yay! There's also a bard that gives you hints to new location areas where you can find items such as beastly claws and much more. And then, of course, we have the new item shop that sells overpriced bullcrap, period. So I decided to go through the castle and the citadel and fight the magical wish dragon. And then I brought back Daddy-O. Right now I'm in the process of going back through and probably going ahead and unlocking the next set of monster arena dublies. So, that's about where I am in post-game, period. I haven't made it to the Temple of Trials yet, but I'll eventually get there.